Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Pilot Cody. I'm a commercial pilot here going for my certified flight instructor Checkride. So today I wanted to come here and teach you guys, give you guys some free ground school. Today we'll be talking about human factors. Before you step foot in an airplane, you want to understand the human factors associated with flight. There's already a lot of technical things that are regarding flying itself, so you want to make sure that you have yourself in line. You have the knowledge. Lack of knowledge is destruction, guys. So today we're going to not leave out any knowledge that you need to know in order to be a safe pilot. Let's get right to it, guys. I am in a spare bedroom right now, so these pink walls are not my pink walls. Just had to make that clear here. But let's get right into it, guys. So we're going to just go ahead and get right into it. Medical certificates. In order to fly as a pilot, you need to hold a certain type of medical depending on what you're flying for. You can look this up in 6153 in the FAR AIM, Federal Airman Regulations. So how do you obtain a medical certificate? It says a pilot cannot act as a crew member on an aircraft if they know or have a reason to know of any medical condition that would make them unsafe to operate the aircraft. So what you need to do is go to an aviation medical examiner. You need to make sure you don't have any high blood pressure, have any diseases you don't know, coronary disease. You need to make sure you don't have any mental disorders. You need to make sure you're fully prepared to go flying this airplane because a lot of people are relying on you and you don't want to end up like that guy passing out up there and the lady has to land in King Air. You ever seen that movie? I think it's called One Wing and a Prayer or something like that. But medical certificates, there's different types of medical certificates you can get, like we mentioned. So the first class here is for your ATP. So before you start your training, I recommend you actually go get a medical certificate to make sure your health is good enough to fly. If your goals are the airlines, that is. So go ahead and go get a first class medical. That is valid for 12 months if you're under 40. If you're over 40, it's valid for 6 calendar months. A second class medical is for your commercial pilot certificates such as crop dusting, CFI, things like that. CFI actually need third class, but for second class, this is your commercial pilot non-ATP medical certificate. So this is valid for 12 calendar months at any age. Your third class medical certificate is valid for 24 calendar months if you are under 40. If you're over 40, it's valid for 60 calendar months. So the third class is used for just basic private pilot flying, things like that. There's a basic med you could also get where you don't have to go to an aviation medical examiner and you actually just go to your local healthcare provider down the street. Let's get right into hypoxia, guys. Hypoxia is basically at higher altitudes, oxygen molecules are spread further apart so the lungs receive less oxygen when you're inhaling, aka the air is less dense the higher you go. So there's different types of hypoxia. So you have a hypoxic hypoxia, which is just caused by altitude. Hypemic hypoxia occurs when the blood cells in the body are unable to take up and transport oxygen molecules. That's because something else is blocking it. Most of the time, it's carbon monoxide poisoning. Hypemic hypoxia is carbon monoxide poisoning caused most of the time. Histotoxic hypoxia is when the brain rejects the oxygen molecules being delivered by the bloodstream, usually caused by drugs and alcohol. When you're really high up, you need to make sure you're not really high up in other areas, or make sure you're not drunk, or make sure that you are truly prepared to go flying, because if not, your brain is not going to flow properly. It's not going to be received or delivered. Stagnant hypoxia is the blood not flowing to the brain. G-forces are the most prevalent known one, but also another one is tight seatbelts. So if your seatbelt's too tight, it's causing a blood blockage, and it could cause a form of hypoxia. So basically it's just reduced oxygen, not enough oxygen. Now, it's called peripheral cyanosis, is when your fingers start to turn blue. You're the pilot in command flying this aircraft. You need to look and know the signs of your passengers having this symptom. You don't know what they had going on the day before or their personal life half the time. So if you start to recognize blue fingertips, they start to say they have a headache, or they start to get a little laggy, their response times are slow, they get impaired, or let's say they feel euphoric, you feel better than you actually feel. And you know you don't ever feel this way. You have visual impairment. Your brain starts making your eyes start not seeing straight or cloudy. Drowsiness, dizziness, numbness, tingling in fingers and toes. So you can actually go get a hypoxia test done at one of these centers where you can actually get into a chamber and you can recognize the signs in your own character. So that way, let's say you're flying 200 people in a 757, you know exactly what to feel and you know what's going to happen. And you would take appropriate corrective actions, just as we mentioned here. Descend to a lower altitude. I was blocking the screen there. You want to stop pulling G-forces. You don't want to pull the G's anymore. That way your blood gets regulated. That's why when they do those barrel rolls and stuff in the jets, they have to hold their breath and shoot the blood to their brain so they don't pass out. And you want to put on oxygen mask if you are at that altitude. Obviously the altitudes here, 12,500, 14,000, 15,000. We'll get into that stuff later. We're not here for that right now. But most of the time, these things could occur once you do reach these altitudes. Time of useful consciousness. So as you can see here, 20,000 feet, if let's say hypoxia happens or you lose oxygen, 30 minutes or more you have to operate. Once you get to 45,000 feet, it really starts to diminish. You have 9 to 15 seconds in order to take corrective action. This is why they say always put your own oxygen mask on first and then help the other person, because the person's not going to die. They just may fall asleep for a second, but you're going to die if no one's helping you. So will they. So be sure to put your oxygen mask on first, then help other people. Hyperventilation. This is caused by a rapid increase in breathing too fast, which essentially depletes your carbon dioxide. You could be feared. You have a lot of stress. You have anxiety, among other factors, such as flying in an airplane. What we're doing, guys, is pretty abnormal to the regular human. About 1% of people are pilots, so when they hop in your little Cessna, they're like, oh my God. The treatment for this person, hyperventilating, hopefully it's not you, the pilot, is going to return the breathing rate to normal. Sing, row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. This isn't a singing lesson, but there you go. You got a singing lesson. Sing, row, row your boat, and they're not gonna row. All right. They get oxygen dioxide back into their body. Talk out loud. Breathe into a paper bag. They say. I heard that was a myth, but breathe into a paper bag is on in the book. Middle ear and sinus problems. During climbs and descents, the free gas formerly present in various body cavities expands due to a difference in pressure of the outside air and the body. So basically, if you do have a respiratory infection and it's in your sinus cavities, if we have a sinus infection and you do go flying, it could end up the air is trapped in your sinus cavities, which causes you to, when it goes up, the pressure decreases. The pressure could be higher in your nose, which causes pain and discomfort. Very painful, actually. Such as when you're climbing. Luckily, we have pressurized cabins in these airliners, which usually lock at an altitude of 8,500 inside, even though they're flying at 45,000 or so outside. But like we mentioned, it's just the pressure differences within your nasal cavities and also ear. Same could happen to your ear. Is if you have an ear infection or your ears are stuffed, you could end up with some ear pain when you're climbing and descending. So be sure to climb at a nice slow altitude for you and your passenger. If you take your mom flying, climb at 500 feet a minute. She's been through a long life. Her ears are needing of comfort. Yes. Spatial disorientation, guys. This is a very big killer among pilots, especially VFR pilots. It means the lack of orientation relative to position, attitude, and movement. You don't know what up and down is. But today we're just going to be talking about spatial disorientation in non-cloud environments. So your vestibular system organs found in the inner ear sense position by the way we are balanced. The somatosensory sensory system, I never said that word, but I did see it. Nerves in the skin, muscles, and joints that sense position based on gravity and feeling. The visual could also deceive you. You could be spatially disoriented by your eyes, like we were just speaking about, not seeing up and down. But you see, your ears actually have a fluid inside your inner ear, which, let's say you're in a turn for a prolonged period of time and you roll out of the turn, your fluid in your ear is still going to feel like you're in a turn, but really you are straight and level. So you're going to what? You're going to maybe try to turn the other way. You stop trusting the instruments. You start feeling more than flying the plane like a pilot. We don't feel things as pilots. We need to look and do as we are taught. Vestibular illusions is a condition called the leans, like we just spoke about. You're in a prolonged turn, went unnoticed by the pilot. You could be thinking you're straight and level when you're in a turn. There's a ladybug on my computer. You could think you're in a turn, or you're straight and level, but you're really in a turn, which causes you to, your attitude is misaligned with how you really think you are doing. The graveyard spiral, as in any other illusion, to pilot is in a prolonged, coordinated, constant rate turn by an experience of illusion of not turning. So what is it? What are they doing? Oh, I'm not turning. I'm not turning. I'm not turning. They're in a graveyard spiral. They're descending while turning the whole time. They're not pulling back on the elevator because they don't think they are turning. So what's that mean? They're in a graveyard spiral, spiraling down to the earth very slowly, which could actually end up being accompanied by a loss of lift and an attitude. You could enter to a spin if you get your airspeeds wrong, or all of a sudden you're looking at your VSI, your vertical speed indicator. It's going rapidly. You don't know what's going on because you're focused outside more than inside. This could happen in the dark time as a VFR pilot, in the nighttime flying, because you don't have a horizon half the time, especially in the ocean world over there in Florida and Hawaii and all that. Very important to look at your instruments and make sure they're working properly. The Coriolis illusion is a pilot has been in the turn long enough that the fluid in the inner ear canal begins to move at the same speed as the canal. A movement of the head in a different plane. So basically you're moving your head while you're flying, and that causes your fluid to move in your ear instead of being nice and still-headed. You're moving your ears, looking all over the place, and you get disoriented. This is why they say when you are flying in bad weather, let's say, or at nighttime, you hold your iPad to your monitoring your instruments at the same time, so that way you're not looking down, adjusting head movements, aka adjusting your fluid, which adjusts what you think up and down is. Also, just focus on the instruments. You'll get instrument training in your private pilot world, only 3 hours of it. The cinematographic illusion. There's not many of these. There's an acronym for this. We'll give it to you later. Cinematographic illusion is an rapid acceleration such as experiencing during takeoff. Stimulates the otolith organs in the same way as tilting the head backwards. So, this action may create what is known as cinematographic illusion. The reverse happens when you are using your reverse thrust, when you're rapidly decelerating. So basically during acceleration, your head tilts backwards and vice versa, which could cause you to feel like when you're decelerating, it feels like you're losing altitude, or when you're accelerating, it feels like you are ascending. This could happen when you're flying a nice turboprop airplane in the future and you apply some power because you need to go around, and it feels such as you are rapidly climbing but you're level and you end up pushing the nose down and all this stuff. Inversion illusion is an abrupt change from a climb to a straight and level flight that can stimulate the otolith organs once again enough to create an illusion of tumbling backwards. So you're climbing and you feel like you're tumbling backwards. I actually experienced that when it was really hazy outside when I was flying to Florida for my commercial ride, and it just completely made me feel like I couldn't see the horizon of the ground at all, so it made me feel like I was tumbling backwards once I was climbing, which I kind of got a little bit nauseated feeling, but I just put the air on my body, just looked inside the plane, stopped looking outside for a moment. My brain and my ears and everything got back aligned with what was really happening. The elevator illusion is an abrupt upward vertical acceleration and can occur in an updraft, can stimulate the otolith organs and create the illusion of being in a climb. An abrupt downward vertical acceleration, usually a downdraft, can create the illusion of the plane being in a nose-low attitude. So you're experiencing an updraft and downdraft, causing you to think your attitude is changing, which is causing you to change your pitch. When in fact, you're not no pitch is being changed. You're just going through air like a boat goes over water in the ocean. There's literally a ladybug on my monitor right now, on my computer monitor. Thank you, ladybug. So basically, we're going through the pictures here. Updraft causes you to think it causes you to change your pitch, guys. Very important not to listen to your feelings is what we're getting at here. False horizon. This is the one you're most likely to experience during your night pilot training when you're flying at nighttime, and next thing you know, you're looking at the ocean and it looks like it's straight and level right there, so you line the plane's frame up with that, and it actually causes you to really be not straight and level because you use something that's not the horizon. So you want to always look at the instruments and trust that real horizon, if there is one, and don't look at the ocean waters and things like that. Autokinesis is also what you experience at nighttime. It's when you are flying in the dark and a stationary light appears to begin as if it's moving when stared at. So if you do see that, just expect that to do that illusion in your eyes. It's due to your optical illusions. The cones in your eyes is what uses color. The rods in your eyes is what you use at nighttime. So there's less things happening at night, obviously, a lot less color. So you need to end up using your peripheral vision at nighttime in order to actually see traffic and other things properly. Runway width illusion. A narrower than usual runway can create the illusion that the aircraft is at a higher altitude than it actually is. Happened to me the other day with my boy David. We were flying. We were doing some IFR work. We went to an airport we'd never seen. Next thing you know, we're arriving in the airport. We're like, holy mackerel, this runway is really narrow. So when we're landing, we think we're higher because it looks really narrow. We think we need to come down some more. But truly, we were already there. We landed really fast. Luckily, he landed first, so I realized, all right, I can correct for this. But he landed really, really hard because, not really hard, it's kind of hard, because he didn't realize that you can look at the chart supplement and look at the narrow feet of the runway. Runway slope illusion. By the way, a wider runway causes the illusion of you being like, you think that you're actually lower than you actually are, causing you to flare higher. Runway slope illusion. So let's say you're going on a downward slope, but your runway has a downward slope, kind of like my airport here nearby, Alexander City has one. So when you're landing there, it appears that you're higher than you really are. It's causing you to come in at a higher approach. So the downsloping runway can create the illusion the aircraft is lower than it actually is, leading to a higher approach. An upsloping runway can create the illusion that the aircraft is higher than it actually is, leading to a lower approach. I see. I haven't looked at this picture in a long time, but essentially this is caused because of the way the aircraft's looking, how you're used to it looking. Dude, this ladybug right there. Fly. Okay. Optical illusions. We're still here. Featureless terrain, water refraction, and haze. The haze can create the illusion of things being farther away, seeming farther than it actually is. It's actually closer. Ground lighting could make your vision less precise because let's say you're flying at a lower altitude, you can see individual lighting systems. When you get higher, it just looks like one light. So this is pretty prevalent when you're actually looking at airport lights. Okay, this ladybug got to get off my computer here. All right, I had to swipe it off the desk. I feel a little guilty, but bright runway and approach light systems could make it where you can see less distance of the runway. It looks like it's less distance to the runway. My bad. Motion sickness, guys. Here we go. Now we're on a different topic. Motion sickness is caused by the brain's receiving conflicting messages about the state of the body in flight. I experienced this when I first started training, is because you think your brain is thinking, I don't know what's going on. So you have no control over the plane, basically. It felt like it was so windy. I was just learning to fly. I didn't know how the plane behaved. And the corrective actions actually to this, if your passenger is getting it, allow them to have the hands on their controls. That way they can know they can turn the plane left. Oh, okay, it's turning left. Okay, let's turn right. Okay, it's turning right. Put the air on them. And make sure that you have a bag available in case they're going to get sick. And this causes them to actually get oriented back to what's actually happening instead of your brain's conflicting messages. Carbon monoxide poisoning, like we spoke of earlier, hypemic hypoxia, causes of carbon monoxide poisoning would come from the aircraft heater. In your cabin, you have a cabin heater for wintertime and actually gets basically heat from your exhaust shroud. and it brings the heat from your exhaust area from there to your airplane. But sometimes the shroud is cracked, which is actually sending real exhaust fumes to your cockpit. Sorry. I had a coffee from Dunkin' Donuts. But basically, it could send bad fumes to your plane, which causes you to have a headache, blurred vision, dizziness, drowsiness, euphoria, loss of muscle power, death. If you stay in there too long, it goes unnoticed. There's actually been a study about a guy who literally was flying a Mooney, and he woke up on the ground, crashed his plane because he got carbon monoxide poisoning. He lived. He didn't know what happened. He woke up on the ground like he just woke up at his grandmother's house and he just had cookies for dinner, but he literally woke up on the ground, walked away. Miracle, that is. God is good. The corrective actions immediately, if you're starting to smell fumes, you're starting to feel a little bit off, like you have those hypoxia symptoms we talked about, turn off the heater immediately, open the window immediately, get all that fumes out of there very fast and land as soon as possible. Fatigue equals pilot error. Some of the effects of fatigue is a degradation of attention and concentration, impaired coordination, and a decreased ability to communicate clearly. Acute fatigue is a short-term, part-of-life type of thing. After you work out, you didn't get enough sleep. But chronic fatigue is actually extending over long periods of time and usually may have physiological roots. Although an underlying disease is possible. You need to get help. Stress is the same thing. Stress could be healthy in flying, but too much stress could cause you to act irrationally, to act too impulsively, be really susceptible to whatever the guy is saying next to you. And truly, acute fatigue is a perceived threat or danger. This is the type of flight that triggers fight or flight. No pun intended. Chronic stress is defined as a level of stresses that present an intolerable burden, exceeds the ability of the individual to cope, and it causes the individual to performance to fall sharply. We're good on time. Dehydration, a critical loss of water from the body, may become thirsty with 1.5 quarts, which is 2% of the body's weight. You need to at least have that in you when you're flying. Hot flashes, wind and humidity. You could drink a lot of coffee and tea, alcohol. Don't drink alcohol and fly, obviously, but it says alcohol can make you dehydrated, and caffeinated soda also make you dehydrated. So symptoms: headache, fatigue, muscle cramping, dizziness, sleepiness, drowsiness. Drink a lot of water, guys. Hypothermia, you're really cold and you can't even learn, you can't even focus, you are shivering, you're sleepless, you stiff muscles. This does happen from time to time, but luckily in the planes it's kind of cozy. But I've never flown in Alaska, so make sure you dress appropriately. Alcohol. Studies have shown that consumption of alcohol is closely linked to performance deterioration. The safe outcome of any flight depends upon the pilot's abilities to make correct and timely decisions. Alcohol rules: 8 hours bottle to throttle is the rule. 0.04 is the maximum tolerance allowed. I think alcohol should be illegal. No flying, don't fly hungover or under the influence, because that does sustain still feeling the effects, which is not 8 hours bottle to throttle. Scuba diving, we're almost done, guys. Scuba diving decompression sickness is a condition characterized by a variety of symptoms resulting from exposure to low barometric pressures that will cause inert gas, mainly nitrogen, normally dissolved in the body's fluids and tissues, to come out of physical solution in the form of bubbles. Kind of like that guy. Not funny, but scuba diving subjects the bodies to increased pressure and more nitrogen to dissolve in the body's tissues and fluids. So the rules for this: if you're going to the Bahamas as a commercial pilot in the future, you're taking your mother there, she wants to go scuba diving. If she does have a controlled dive, is when a person dives enough that they cannot immediately return to the surface, they must return at the stages to avoid injury. That means they're going to need to wait 24 hours if they fly at an altitude above 8,000. Uncontrolled dive is when the person does not need to have a controlled ascent, which is allowing you to then fly at a period of 24 hours. But if you're flying above 8,000, it's 12 hours. It's 24,000 for controlled dive for above and below 8,000. You just don't want to fly if you just want scuba diving and a controlled descent to happen. Uncontrolled dive is if you're flying below 8,000, 12 hours is what you need to wait. 24 hours is above 8,000. People who fly usually have money and they like to do stuff like scuba diving, so you need to make sure that they don't accidentally get sick and die in your plane because they simply wanted to go flying. And they don't know this stuff, guys. They don't know about aviation. They're busy doing other things. That's why you're the pilot. You need to become a master at your craft that you're learning for these people. Hazardous attitudes. Anti-authority. Don't tell me. Not following the rules. The antidote? Follow the rules. They're there for a reason. They are usually right as well. Impulsivity, like we spoke of. Doing something too quickly. Not so fast. Think first is the antidote. Invulnerability. It will not happen to me. Your antidote is it could happen to you. Macho. I can do it no matter what. Taking chances is foolish is the antidote. Resignation. What's the use? I'm not helpless. I can make a difference is the antidote. We need to constantly keep these things in check. And if you do actually end up having one of these, you need to mark it as a hazardous attitude and then address it. Because when you're a pilot, you're your own supervisor. You don't have a boss. So you want to make sure you're addressing your own macho-ness. All these things. Some people have macho, dude. A lot of people in the aviation world. My gosh. I'm safe checklist. You always want to do this before you go flying. Illness, medication, stress, alcohol, fatigued, emotional/eating. You want to have all these things so that way you know you're ready to fly. If you're too stressed to fly, like we spoke of, you can't go fly. You took medication. There's a FAA website for medication that's not allowed. You're going to be drowsy. You can't fly. You have an illness. You're sick. Alcohol. You drink. Fatigued. Emotion. Eating. This is a self checklist that the FAA is trusting you with. So guys, we went through the human factors of flight. We have learned a lot today, and I hope you got something out of this. Life isn't about just rushing, cramming information. It's actually about debriefing and going back on this stuff so you learn effectively and it sinks in and lasts forever. People that tend to cram information tends to forget it over a period of time. Today, if you need to go back and rewatch any of this, if you need to take some notes, if you need to look deeper into any of these subjects, feel free to do so. I gave you the information, and it's your job as a pilot to incorporate it into your daily life and flying. So guys, my name is Pilot Cody. I'm going to get off of here, and I'm going to start the next lesson plan. Hope you guys have a blessed day and stay safe flying, and I will see you in the next one, guys. Bye-bye.